Yeah, 100%. And I think the biggest one is just delineated. When we're talking about AI scribes, people just latch on to AI versus AI scribe, or even
Uh,
more succinctly, AI ambient tool, right? And so that's the biggest thing is when people they hear that statement, they latch on to AI, and that's where we get the people that are using ChatGPT as their scribe, even though what they're doing is I've had some people literally using their iPhone and just recording their conversation and then copy pasting that into ChatGPT, right? Where you could label that as a scribe. But when we are talking about these ambient listening tools, it's just the processes, the functionality, the capabilities are just completely different. Whereas, a lot of people compare to Dragon, right? Dragon is going to take verbatim what you say, and then we can plug that in the note. And yes, 10 years ago, that was super beneficial. But now these ambient tools, literally, that's the most accurate word to describe them is they're ambient. They're ambiently listening to the conversation.
This episode is brought to you by PT Pintcast Media. If you've ever thought about launching a podcast to grow your brand, your clinic, or your business, we can help. Email me right now at jimmy@ptpintcast.com. Now for the episode today. Imagine you're a physical therapist, like you are one. You just wrapped a 45-minute long eval. You're behind on notes, and the front desk is reminding you that your next patient is already waiting. You're drained, but your documentation backlog is growing, and your billing, let's just say it's safe, not accurate. Now imagine instead of no paperwork pile, no second-guessing codes, and follow-up emails to patients and referring docs firing off before your patient even hits the parking lot. It's not a dream. It's what happens when you combine clinical insight, AI-powered tools, and a deep understanding of the real pain points in physical therapy practice. Before stepping into the world of artificial intelligence, he was in the trenches as a clinic manager and practicing physical therapist. Our guest today knows the burnout, the billing stress, the time crunch, and he's helping to build tools and spread them around our profession that fixes them. His mission: to make therapists more efficient, more accurate, and more human by taking the keyboard out of the way. Today on PT Pintcast, meet Aaron Bauer from Athelas. Bauer's back on the show. Bauer, welcome back to the program, man.
Hey, how are you doing, Jimmy?
I feel like, did you ever watch the movie Gladiator?
Yes. I mean, How many times is the question?
Of course you have. I don't know. It's rhetorical. I should have just said, you've watched Gladiator, of course. I sort of feel like that's the situation right now where Gladiator is like the arena is the healthcare world. And all the different gladiators are these AI scribes, right? And I feel like people throw these words out. And the funny part is if I ask someone like, which scribe are you using? And they're like, ChatGPT. And I'm like, okay, so that's not, I see what you're doing there. That's not actually an AI scribe. Or people are using, like I was talking to someone today and they're using Dragon.
Yeah.
And like Dragon came out a million years ago when I was in college, where it was like voice to text was like the most amazing thing in the world. I'm dating myself, of course, because this was like 1998.
People still use it. You're not dating yourself. Yes.
We're still using fax machines here. So
Exactly.
believe me, Dragon voice to text is a little more advanced than fax, but still we're doing it. So here's the thing. I think whenever we get technology dropped on us in healthcare, outside, doesn't matter, we get overloaded. We get overloaded with this. And a lot of times that sort of bell curve about early adopters and laggards and all those things, the reason people don't want to adapt or adopt is they just sort of don't know. Like a lot of times people will be like, oh, that's what it is? I'll do that. I'll try that. And like, well, you ask the person, why didn't they do it? It was like, I just kind of didn't know what it was. I didn't realize it was that simple or that easy to use.
Yeah. And that doesn't even just apply to scribes. It applies to AI in general, right?
Anything.
Like it's in the PT world, it's getting to the fibromyalgia, right? Like you get a fibromyalgia diagnosis, it's like 1 out of 10, maybe worse, actually truly probably does have what is fibromyalgia versus just a garbage term that we're putting in there, right? And so, yeah, and it's fun having those conversations every day because everyone's viewpoint of that is different, right? Like what is their experience with it, what they think it is, exactly what you're just saying, right? And
so you probably get 4 or 5 light bulb moments from people a day. And these people that you're talking to on a higher level are people who work at smaller practices, mid-sized practices, super large health systems, and they're saying, okay, we're going to dip our toe. We've heard about it enough. We've heard it in the gladiator arena. We've heard this term around enough. Okay, what is it? So when you're sitting with someone, there's the hard question. We're going to start with the hard questions, Bauer. What exactly is an AI scribe, and how is it different than like basic dictation, voice to text, dragging? How do you explain it?
Yeah, 100%. And I think the biggest one is just delineated. When we're talking about AI scribes, people just latch on to AI versus AI scribe, or even more succinctly, AI ambient tool, right? And so that's the biggest thing is when people they hear that statement, they latch on to AI, and that's where we get the people that are using ChatGPT as their scribe, even though what they're doing is I've had some people literally using their iPhone and just recording their conversation and then copy pasting that into ChatGPT, right? Where you could label that as a scribe. But when we are talking about these ambient listening tools, it's just the processes, the functionality, the capabilities are just completely different. Whereas, a lot of people compare to Dragon, right? Dragon is going to take verbatim what you say, and then we can plug that in the note. And yes, 10 years ago, that was super beneficial. But now these ambient tools, literally, that's the most accurate word to describe them, is they're ambient. They're ambiently listening to the conversation. And so that's the biggest thing to talk about that I have the conversation with. It's not taking your conversation verbatim. Yes, some tools out there use the transcript and you can see the transcript, but that's not the finalized note.
Right.
It is the AI takes that and then washes that, configures that, do whatever we need to do that, and that turns into the note. And so I think that's the word ambient, I think, is the key in this conversation, because again, it's taken the work out of us. We don't have to think about what we're saying. Back to Dragon is you have to think about what you're saying because it's going to put verbatim what you say. Whereas these ambient tools know what conversation, they know the flow of conversation. They take that and then they also know what a note's supposed to sound like. And they mesh those two things together to create the note form. So I think that's trying to be simplistically a way to put it.
All right. So here are the questions people are either asking themselves or should be asking themselves as they're walking into sort of this gladiator arena of all this technology. So now that we've sort of defined terms, we understand what exactly is an AI scribe and what maybe looks like one, walks like one, talks like one, but isn't one, right? So we've sort of ruled that in, ruled out. Let's talk about time savings. Listen, I've been doing this for 20 years, you might hear a therapist say. I can write a note and I know how I like to write, but when we look at these tools, the first thing that comes to mind is it's going to save me some time. It's going to save me some stress. So what kind of time savings are providers realistically seeing by using an AI scribe?
Yeah. And a part of it is how we do notes, right? Like, I was in practice for 12 years and I managed clinics, right? And I saw the spectrum. And so I saw people able to do a PT eval, write a PT eval in, 5 minutes or less, right? Or I saw people take them, it was way too long, 45 minutes to do an eval, right? And so it's a delicate mixture of, time savings versus, still having a quality product, right? Because that person that's writing that 5-minute eval, what's written in that 5-minute email, the subjective, there's probably a sentence or two missing the whole patient's information. So like, if someone says that I can finish that note in 5 minutes and that note's quality, well, you have the secret sauce and we need to spread that across the physical therapy profession and have everybody do that. I just don't think that's out there. Right. And so, but what I find and is most fascinating to me from a clinical care standpoint is those people that are taking the 45 minutes. It's way too long, probably way too detailed to note. But the reason they're doing that is they honestly care about the patient, right? And they're trying to put as much detail in there. And I guarantee putting too much detail in there. But tools like this take those people And that's where we really see the true savings. And the beautiful thing with that I think is those are the providers we want us treating my grandma, right? That's the person I want to treat them because they care, they're putting in a ton of effort. And by taking that time, tools like this they're going to see immense savings in time. And again, in the physical therapy profession, do I want that 5-minute person treating my grandma? You guys answer that question, right? And so you can see the people that care. I mean, I've seen some practitioners save an hour a day, right? And like that is life-changing in a multitude of ways in that physical therapy's life, that physical therapist's life, but then also their patients too, right? So the time savings is without question with people that care and truly are good physical therapists will save immense amount of time.
I thought I saw something somewhere. I don't know if that was from you or somewhere on your website. It said like your average closed note time was like 42 seconds.
Like, and so and the beautiful thing is these products are constantly evolving, right? And so we're going to get to the point where basically the time it takes to complete the note is just the pure processing time, right? Like, so let's go back to our example. Let's say someone's taking, let's do middle of the road, 20 minutes, 15 minutes to do write a good eval, right? They're still probably going to have to make some edits in the tool, whatever tool they're using, right? And so you're still going to take 10 minutes, 5 minutes, if that. And so you're still, 3 evals a day. That's 30 minutes there, right? But again, back to the people that care, they're going to, the products that you can customize it, the products that you can make, cue the AI where the AI gets better at learning how to write. Then that's when you see that 40 seconds takes the process. Ooh, that note is exactly how I want it. I don't have to touch it.
All right, real talk for a second. If you're a physical therapist or running a clinic, you already wear like 50 hats a day. Clinician, manager, scheduler, part-time tech support. I see you. But what if you had a sidekick that could help you do all of that? Something smarter. That's where Empower EMR by MW Therapy comes in. It's built just for physical therapists, and it's loaded with smart automations and AI that help you grow your practice without burning out. No more chasing paper trails or fighting outdated systems. This thing handles billing, scheduling, documentation, patient engagement, all in one clean, customizable platform. The best part? It's actually affordable and scales as you grow. Clinics everywhere are loving it. And if you're ready to take the stress off your plate and be the hero of your practice again, check out a free demo at mwtherapy.com. And with yours, with the Athelas AI Scribe, when you give it a good first pass, and let's say you see something you want to change, you have two options. You can use your thumbs or your fingers, right? Keyboard, or you can hit the microphone again, just like we would if I were using ChatGPT to edit a document. I can say, hey, take out that middle paragraph and actually replace it with this. You can speak verbatim, or you can talk to it like, and I had a PCP once for a while. There was a third person in the room. There was a scribe, and she was able to turn to that person and say, do this, do that, do that. And she did it. This scribe is truly like that. You can either type it in yourself manually, or you can hit that microphone again and say, hey, that was good, but I want you to change this, change that. And it will make those changes, right?
Yeah. Yep. And that analogy is perfect. That's exactly how you want to treat it. Like, so these tools aren't going to make decisions for you, right? They're not going to tell you what diagnosis you should be doing. You still have to make that clinical decision. But yeah, it's like you have an in-person scribe in the room with you. And if there's information you forgot to say, tell them after the fact,
right?
Or if the note doesn't look, or if it included too much information, or they had fibromyalgia and they only talked about their back and we want to talk about every single body part. Just tell it, include the shoulder pain, things like that. And then it just listens to that, reworks the note, and then produces what you want.
After speed, people, especially in healthcare, because now we're talking about treating someone's grandmother, they're going to want to know about accuracy. The question is accuracy. So how accurate are these things? How do you measure those things? And then what happens when the AI gets something wrong? So accuracy and then fixing the accuracy.
Yep. No, that's a great concern. And in the AI world, that's a common concern, and especially hear the word hallucinations put out there. And so that's a very common thing. And in terms of accuracy, there's really two ways to look at it. So one is it hearing things correctly? Right.
Okay.
And that's when, hey, if we just look at the entire transcript of that conversation, did it pick up that conversation correctly? Right. And the good tools out there are going to be at 99% accuracy, where it is catching that entirety of the conversation, right? And then it leads us to, what about these hallucinations, right? And so really hallucinations, it's kind of a getting to be a garbage term as well, is where it's very uncommon that an AI tool, and this can be any tool out there, completely makes something up, right? It's not going to make that. It's going to make assumptions, right? And so if it heard this and this, then it's going to make the assumption between that. And when you truly look at it, those are usually what the hallucinations are. It's not just a random thing out of left field that it's bringing, right? Then the second part of the accuracy is the note itself, right? So we got the transcript, the accuracy of the transcript, but then how the note does. And that really comes down into the use of the tool and how we can customize that tool, because, we work with all specialties, right? So not just PT, we work with family med, ortho, things like that, right? And so things are going to be important in a certain field that are not important in a different field, right? And so it's, how is that AI trained to recognize those differences? And to be honest with you, there's not a one size fits all way to do that. And so the only way to make the note accurate is to be able to be customizable, to basically be fluid, where it may be written this way one day, but then we need to change it to make it more accurate in the note in the future.
Love that. All right. So what about HIPAA? Like the minute someone tells me I'm using an AI scribe and that AI scribe is ChatGPT, I sit there and I say, okay, I am not. I just actually did an episode not long ago with a compliance expert. What about HIPAA and security? How do you keep patient data protected? This has got to be for you. You're already nodding and smiling. This has got to be a top 3 question when you sit down.
I mean, that's just a no-brainer, right? Like,
Yeah.
if I don't care who you're talking to, if you're working with a company that's giving, you're potentially buying an ambient tool from them, it has to be HIPAA compliant.
Table stakes.
It's just, I answer that question probably daily, and my usual answer to that is, yes, we are. To be honest with you, we would not be in business if we weren't, right? And so that is a no stop. There's no, and that's the problem with, like you said, is the clinicians that are using ChatGPT to do it, is that's not HIPAA compliant, right? Like, you need an actual where we're protecting these databases, right? And so if there's any data stored, you need to make sure that is 100% HIPAA.
Right. I mean, even when some people are saying, hey, I'm using Google Forms and, Google Sheets as my EMR, some small practices do that. Even those things, man, you have to make sure of a technology you're using. It just opens you up to so much liability.
I had a practice, they use Salesforce as their EMR. I don't know how that worked, but
I feel it's just too much effort, and Salesforce ain't even cheap, man. So you ain't saving any money on that.
Exactly.
All right, so it's HIPAA compliant. I understand how to use it, right? I'm beginning there. I understand how it works. I understand that it's going to eventually save me some time. How long does it take me to actually learn how to use something like this, right? Whenever you're implementing technology, you're going to switch. Even changing a template or a workflow isn't easy. So what's the learning curve on something like adding like your AI scribe?
Yeah, and that question, if you're looking across the board, it's going to range quite a bit. I mean, obviously, all these tools out there are going to try to make them as user-friendly as possible, right? And that's what you have to do to be competitive in the market, right? But I think the biggest question with that one is, like, what's the support involved, right? I don't care what you're using, like, how are you supported to learn this product, right? It's a new flow, it's a new system, things like that. And so that's why it can range quite a bit. Whereas if it's self-serve, you have no customer support. If you're tech savvy, I mean, you probably can learn it pretty quickly with anything, like you would learn quickly with any tech thing, right? especially if you're looking at it at a company level, right? That's not your staff. You're going to have a handful of therapists that can do that, and
Right.
good for them. Let's let them do that.
Right.
But there's also going to be a handful of staff that are tech illiterate, that have never used something like this. And so the only way to make it decrease that curve of new learning the new tool, is to have a customer service team, right? Where
Yeah.
they actually have people, answering questions, taking I go through it every day of, this is how you log on, this is how we download this Chrome extension, things like that, to catch everyone versus just the tech savvy people, right?
Yeah.
But if you do that, I've worked with people that, I had to answer those questions as far as, okay, this is, oh, you forgot your password, this is where we do this and that, right?
Right.
But, if, as long as they're consistently using it, a week or less to learn how to use it efficiently, right?
I'm not the most tech forward individual. I consider myself, I like to jump in and try things. The Athelas AI Scribe was pretty user friendly. I didn't need to dig around in a menu. The buttons and stuff like that were where I assumed they would be. Like that's 90% of the battle for me, right? Like, is the record button the main button? Yes. Is it large and in the spot I can't miss? Yes. I think, and just to be clear, the Athelas AI Scribe and the Chimera, they're available on phones.
Yep,
or
both.
a Chrome extension, so you could use it with a laptop or a phone.
Yep, both Apple, Android apps, Chrome extension, both websites, wherever you want them, they're there.
It probably took me 5 or 6 times playing with it. I did a bunch of fake, funny evals with friends. I said, pretend you're a patient, pretend you fell off the stage doing karaoke, like give me a ridiculous whatever. And the cool part was I was learning not only the tech probably took me, that was a portion of it. Really, it was becoming a verbal processor, because I wanted to include things like ranges of motion. So I was like, well, I don't want to go back there and type the ranges of motion. So I was like, oh, pretend that there's someone there writing this down. So I was like, hey, it looks like this and this. And I tried this. I did this anterior drawer test. It was negative. So it was like, say those things out loud, and I don't have to go back in there and change that. It's going to be in the note.
Yep.
And I started to sort of do it my own way. Templates are available too, and you can customize it. So there could be a little work in the beginning, but then every time you run through it, it's going to be better, right? So a little bit of work on the front end reduces the effort on the back end.
I love that you bring that up, because I'm going to geek out a little bit here in terms of PT. As far as, us incorporating this, like you just said, again, any company out there is going to make the actual product as user friendly as possible. And so usually the biggest barrier in terms of incorporating it is developing the verbal skills, right? Verbalizing what you want in the note where you're not used to doing that. Pretty simplistic and pretty understandable, right? But what I love, and I do this all the time on calls, is what you don't think about is you're doing that for the note, right? So you're saying the anterior drawer test to get it into the special test for this note, right? But do you know who also is hearing that? Your patient. And they eat that up. They love that. And to be honest, we don't do that enough as physical therapists, is to tell them what we're doing.
What are you doing?
What's happening. And they love that. I never really had a patient say, shut up, I don't want to hear what you're talking about, right?
Right.
If they know more what's going on, why you're doing certain things, what tests you're doing, what is my range of motion when I reach overhead, is it 170? And then the cool thing is, because you verbalized during the eval, you're going to do the same thing during a re-eval. Yep. And they love that. And that's one kind of side effect of tools like this that we don't think about firsthand that it's going to lead to. That the patients are going to be more involved. They're going to feel better taken care of. Things like that I just absolutely love, because it's good for the profession, the patient, all that stuff, not just talking about saving us time.
It's show versus tell, right? What does that mean, anterior drawer? What does that mean, that thing? Oh, so you were complaining about this. It opens up that, instead of you having to force patient education, they asked the question. What do you mean by that? Or how big of a difference is that? And you verbalizing, I mean, hey man, from a marketing perspective, it's show versus tell. Show always beats
exactly.
tell. So I sort of taught myself that, where I was like, I wouldn't have to want to go back in. I was super bad too. I had classmates that could remember the range of motion on a shoulder they did at 9 a.m. at 5:30. I couldn't remember the range of motions on a shoulder I did 11 minutes ago. So I had to stop and write those damn things down. And I hated that, because that broke eye contact. It broke flow. So if you're in the moment and you're like, hey, everything on the right's within normal limits, and on the left, it just you verbally process that, dude, it's done. You don't miss it. You open up the door, like you just said, for patient to be involved, or maybe they're just listening. Even if they're not asking, they're paying attention.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. This is a big one, especially for PT, and you might get a kick out of this too. I did a demo with the Athelas AI Scribe in a happy hour at a conference in the bar. And the people I was demoing it with, like, do you want to step out into the hallway? And I said, absolutely not. Because PT, like some other medical settings, is often done not in a soundproof pod. It's with other people around. It's with people walking by and asking questions. Sometimes we start talking about the Taylor Swift concert our daughter went to or whatever. So how does it hold up in the real world? Accents, interruptions, background noise, fast speech. Some people speak really fast. How's it handle that?
Yeah, no, a great question. And again, it comes down to the thing it has to do. And speaking to our product, we have to be able to be in a gym setting. You have to be able to do that. But I think a lot of it comes down to, again, is the queuing and what AI we're using, because we want it to be accurate. And so these tools will pick up, auxiliary conversation, right? So if I'm treating my patient on a table, there's a therapist behind me, they're going to be treating, it may pick up some things they said, right? But the important part is the AI is trained to recognize that conversation flow. So if it hears our conversation and then it hears just a couple random words, it's going to recognize that. That does not go with the flow of conversation. And so that's why the tool can be used in a busy gym setting. Obviously, you can't yell across the room with 5 people in between you, because then it won't be able to delineate that. But when you and the patient are next to each other, it will recognize that. The one thing that I'm fascinated with about is how well it handles accents. And so I've dealt with a lot of physicians, and a lot of physicians have some thick accents of multiple different kinds, right? One of the coolest ones, I worked with a podiatrist that had a super thick Russian accent, and I was anticipating this note was going to be good quality because of that, but it actually handles accents very well. And when you take a step back and think about it, again, it's recognizing the flow of conversation, right? So if you look at it granularly and you're saying, oh, when they say this one word, it doesn't make sense. Yeah, if you just picked out that one word and what it heard with that one word, yes, it's probably going to misinterpret that. But because what the AI is listening to, it's listening to the full conversation. And so it doesn't necessarily need to hear each word 100% correctly. It's the flow. And so then it can group that together. And that's why it handles it so well.
So you're giving it more context so it can start to figure that thing out. Again, there's a huge differentiator between a text to speech.
Yeah, where Dragon would just spell all those words wrong.
Right. And then you have to go in there and manually fix it. And I would actually argue that's where I think a lot of people would just say, I'd rather just do it myself because I don't want to have to redo it, or I don't want to sit there and sift through it. This is able to do that and that, a yes and. I don't think I thought about asking this before, but you guys can handle multiple languages, correct?
Yeah. So us specifically, we can handle over 60 different languages. And so, yeah. And the coolest thing I think with that is you don't even need to change workflow, right? So we have several clinics that, maybe have a high Spanish speaking population. And then because of that, they have several clinicians that can speak fluent in Spanish. They do not change anything. They literally just have the conversation like they would in Spanish, and then it produces the note for them. I think the cool thing is the transcript is 100% in whatever language they spoke, right? But then when you look at the note that it produces, it's an English written note. Yep.
Wow, that's wild. One more thing I wanted you to point out, and I'll do this a little bit if I ever show people off. I'll say, oh, we just did that whole conversation in the SOAP note template, but I wanted to do the shoulder eval. Does that mean we need to do the whole conversation over again? But no, you just click change template. It goes, don't worry about it. Now I'll run it through that template. So you don't have to, God forbid, if you fill out the wrong template and maybe you went back, you push the back button on a browser-based EHR and you're like, everything's gone. You don't have to do that.
It's a very PT question of you. Oh, yeah. I remember those days of doing an eval, and I clicked the eval and I picked the back eval, but actually it's a knee patient, and I filled out, and then you don't have any. Yeah, I would. Yes, and that's a big pain point, right? But to be honest with you, any good tool out there, you should be able to change templates at will,
Right.
because a lot of the times what the template is doesn't matter. It's what the AI is reading is that transcript. So that's what it's basing the decision off the transcript, and then whatever rules that we've applied to that. And so that's the large language model, right? And so the end of that is the template. So you're not changing any of that front end stuff, right? So there's no reason you couldn't at will change the template, right? Because you're literally changing the last step in the process. So let's just tell it to change it again. Yes, we'll have to rerun the note, so another 43 seconds, like we're talking about.
Right.
But yes, you should be able to do that at will.
We're going off script a little bit because I'm thinking about how I talk about this. Going across the top of the Athelas Scribe, this is something I didn't expect. It's going to suggest some codes. So, and I said suggest, right? Because again, some people are saying, I don't want this to write everything for me. I always explain to people, it's going to make a really great suggestion, but it's your name at the bottom. You're going to make the decision. I don't know. I would never have thought like, oh, it's going to suggest codes based on what it heard. That's got to be not only a time saver, but like a little bit of a confidence boost. It's like, yeah, I was going to do that, but it's great to also see this was suggesting it.
Yeah, and that's something I think it should be able to do too, right? So like, the ICD-10, the book's out there, right? So why can't we load that, codify that into the AI so it's making that decision? And it's one of those things is, offhand, you may not think that's beneficial. Is like when I was in practice, I did my own coding. I picked my own codes, but guess what? Whenever I saw a knee patient, I did right knee stiffness, I did right knee pain, I did the same generic three codes or whatever it was every time. And so, yes, a lot of the time, because as PTs, we build the same codes a lot, right? But if there's anything unique in that, or where we can apply a different code to make it more specific, and that goes back to the insurance side of things, right? Like the more specific we can make this individual encounter with that patient, then we don't have to worry about that other billing side of things, right? So it's covering you. You're going to get better reimbursement. One thing I know that all PTs hate is if we're dealing with insurance where they're going to give us 5 visits or 10 visits or 50, whatever, they just give us a lump sum of visits. Well, guess what? If we have better coding on the front end, we're going to get more visits, right? And so again, like you said, suggested, and you don't have to use them, but by all means, it's justifying that, saying, hey, these are ones we can use. You don't have to pick all of them, but you can pick these ones. And so I think that's a feature that, again, all of them should have.
Yeah, and a lot of people are saying, what's the return on investment? Time, it's there, hard to measure, right? Reducing burnout or stress, it's there, hard to measure. Objectively changing suggestions of codes and seeing if they match, I bet you could measure that. Something else that would come in too, and for a hot second, I'm going to defend insurance companies. They will pay you if you build a code. I know. They will pay you if you build the code and it's appropriate. But if you don't bill it and they don't pay it, you can't be mad at them. Okay, I'm done. I'm going to get off their side. But that's the thing, which is like, if you didn't bill it, you can't be mad at it because there's a contract, right? Them denying it later on is different. But again, better information in with a good note and a clear, proper code. It's going to reduce those denials going further upstream. So I'm done defending the insurance company.
Well, it's one of those things is us PTs have been this way for too long. I have full-heartedly, most PTs are really good people out there. And I think that's part of the issue is, right, we don't want to play them at their own game, right? Like if we can charge a code, charge the code, right? Like, far too common do we think that we want to be nice people where, no, play them at their own game, right? There's no reason we shouldn't do that.
I saw a report, I think it was at an APTA event a couple of years ago, and this was before I even ever heard of the term AI that I would ever be able to play with. And the idea, what they found was they looked at a bunch of documentation and found that PTs specifically over-documented, like you said in the beginning, someone doing a 45-minute evaluation, writing that up. We actually gave them way too much information because we were all taught by CIs who were taught by CIs who said the more is better, and it found that PTs traditionally underbilled. So we just wrote too much and we're just in the corner saying, well, we'll just take some. And then of course we're saying, but we're worth more. Well, how about properly documenting, and properly billing. Let's go with Goldilocks.
You're speaking to my life as a manager, right? Yeah. You're a week behind on notes because you do too much notes, and then at the same time you're only charging 2 units, and so and I get where it comes from. Like, it's not the individual's fault, right? Like, I think part of it comes down to, at least when I was in school, I came out of school and thought I could, if I did anything wrong, I would lose my license and get sued or whatever it may be, right? But yeah, I think it's anything that can show us what we legally can do. And again, it's not that you're overbilling or anything like that. Like, we are not going to be unethical, right? All PTs I've ever worked with, I don't think are going to be unethical, but you should know what you can bill.
Correct.
Right? Like, and have a little self-worth, right? Like, you should bill what you're worth, right? And that's part of the problem. And little things like this, just showing, hey, you can bill these. This documentation is justifying that billing. Then let's bill it, right?
Yep. Like, all right. If you're still doing all your notes by hand, we need to talk. Athelas AI Scribe is changing the game. You walk in, you talk to your patient like you normally would, you treat them, and boom, your notes are drafted in real time, thanks to AI. No voice commands, no clicking around. It just listens and writes like a scribe, but smarter. People are cutting their documentation time by 90%. That's not a typo, 90%. That's actual feedback from real clinicians using it now. You want to see it in action? Go to athelas.com and take a test drive. That's ATHELAS.com and say goodbye to after hours charting. Another one of the after HIPAA, I feel like this next question I'm about to throw your way has to come up, or it doesn't come up because people are afraid to ask it, but they want the answer, which is, what about people? Should people be worried that AI scribes will replace them? People are worrying about it because people hit me in Facebook groups and comment on that.
I love this question.
All right, good. All right.
Absolutely love this question. And I love when people ask me this question when I'm talking to them about buying things, right? Because I wholeheartedly do not, especially, yes, there's going to be certain jobs out there, PT's not one of them, certain jobs out there that can be augmented, right? But in terms of, especially just medicine, but PT specifically, it is such a human thing that it never truly can get out. And you can go down in any pain science type stuff, right? Like, if you just look into that, like, just being there and everything. So, like, literally, I bet you could do a study. Like, if you had a robot treat someone and a human treat someone, they did the exact same thing. I guarantee they'd get better with the human because of just the human aspect. So there's that one side of the conversation. But I think the coolest part is the AI. And that conversation is Terminator always gets brought up, is we're going to get replaced, things like that. And I forget who I heard it from, but it's not, AI is never going to replace humans. AI is going to replace humans that don't use AI. It is an amplifier, right? It's like a performance enhancing drug, right? It's only going to make you better at what you do. And so if you embrace that, I always use the, I'm old enough, and so this may not work, but I lived before cell phones, right? Yeah. I went to high school without cell phones, and in college is when texting and Facebook really got big, right? And so in high school, I thought things were functional. I thought, we were pretty efficient of coordinating when we're going to go someplace, things like that. But looking back on it, it's like, how did you ever go anywhere and not be able to text someone instantly and see where they're at and meet them there? Or working, having email on your phone. Today I couldn't work without a cell phone because I couldn't email constantly, things like that. And it's because it's an amplifier. And so this is going to be the same thing, is where the AI is going to amplify it. And so one very simple thing that I think is beautiful is, I've used this in the clinic, obviously. But one thing that people don't get before using a product like this is how much bandwidth it takes to listen to someone, think about what you're going to write later, and still receive that information.
Correct.
Right? Well, let's have to worry about what I want to write and truly listen to someone.
Wild.
And your clinical decision making is going to get instantaneously better because you don't have to worry about what you're writing. Right. So No, I do not think this will replace people. It will make people better. And again, for the profession, I think it's going to make the profession better because the people that really jump on something like this obviously are going to get better, like I just explained. But two, it's going to be more efficient. So they're going to be able to see, like, so basically it's going to make it's a rising tide lifts all boats, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so I truly think that it will never truly replace just because of the human aspect of it.
All right. The last question would be the bottom line. People are going to say, like, how should clinics actually look at ROI? Everything we just talked about leading up to right now. How do I measure? Do I need this? I feel like if you think you still don't, I'm confused personally because I mean we haven't even talked about this. If you're a student and you're using AI, even just playing around with it, and you're choosing your first job and that doesn't have it, that's a recruiting tool, right? So that's even a side conversation about using technology as a way of recruiting. But how should clinics think about return on investment? Because this is a cost, but it really is an investment, and there is a difference there.
Yeah, and you could approach that conversation a million different ways. I mean, there's going to be some people that approach it very, data driven, money driven, things like that, where and it's true is why they're approaching in that way, right? Like, so what we just talked about at the beginning of this conversation, right? If you're saving time, right? I've talked to clinics that give therapists 2 hours for documentation time a week or 1 hour of documentation time a week. Some don't at all, but like if you just look at that, if you fill in one eval a week because you save times for documentation, it is more going to pay for itself, right? Not only because that one visit, but then obviously that one visit opens up 2 times a week for 4 to 6 weeks, whatever you want to do, right? So that is a way to approach it. It's a very real way to approach it. And if that's all we care about, yes, there's ROI there. And I think that's enough ROI to explain itself in itself, right? But then there's more kind of unwritten ROI. One, I think, obviously burnout's a huge thing in the PT world, in the medicine world, right? One thing I don't think enough people pay attention to is who are the people that are burning out, right? Back to the 5 minute, 45 minute, it's the therapist, the healthcare worker, whoever it is, that's burning out are the ones that care because they're putting in enough time, right? And so what did we just say this tool is going to help out is those people. And so it's just going to prevent burnout, right? And so then that leads to how do we, us limiting burnout, what does that turn into? Does that turn into more patients? Does that turn into us not leaving a job? And we all know it's a lot easier to keep an employee than find an employee. There's money numbers behind that, right? So there's ROI there. But then I think the just job satisfaction, right? I was a clinic manager. If you have happy, very, casual employees, guess what you can do with them? You can push them a little bit more. They'll work a little bit harder for you. They'll do extra things. Whereas if you have a very grumpy staff, if you do anything extra, it's blowing up in your face, right?
Sure.
And so in terms of ROI, there's some that you can very meticulously data-driven measure, but then there's some other ones that I think probably is actually a higher number attached to it if you had to put a money number.
Yeah.
But I just don't only like having the metrics conversation. I think it's a deeper conversation more than just dollar and cents, right? It's such an impact that if that's the only aspect you're talking about, unless that's the only thing you care about, we need to talk about more.
Yeah. If I knew this existed and I was hearing a colleague talk about it who worked somewhere else and we didn't have it, I mean, I'm trying to think of the last thing. I mean, geez, I was at a peds clinic when I first left PT school. We were on paper. So I remember, I'd used EMRs and I remember just thinking, like, why are we doing this? Like, well, we can't afford it. And I'm like, I don't know. This feels like table stakes. It feels like you have to have a website or a cell phone or, all those things. So it hurt, like knowing that other people were banging these things out faster without cramping, writing these things out by hand. I feel like, again, using this as sort of like the gladiator arena, knowing that other people have those tools feels like you just got shoved in the arena and you don't have a sword. And that has to be frustrating. And you're going to look for a place that you can go differently that will equip you with a sword.
Yeah. Yeah. And I say this every day is like, I would not be here today if I was introduced to an ambient
yeah,
listening
man.
tool earlier in my life.
Wild.
Like, because I am a PT that I truly loved patient care. I truly loved it. It wasn't that I didn't like it or anything like that. I truly loved it. And so if I had that tool, I probably wouldn't be here today. Right.
Last thing I forgot to mention, the Athelas AI Scribe, from my marketing heart, right? My previous career was being in communications and marketing. You can have 2 emails written that are personalized to that treatment session, that those emails are sent out before the patient's butt even touches their car seat in the parking lot. You can have an email written to them summing up what just happened, reminding them of their next patient, their next visit. You can have another separate email, a template, but customized to that interaction, thanking the referring provider for sending that person your way. That's closing the loop. That might seem small. I do not think that is small.
Oh, I have this conversation, right? Both of those things I wanted my staff to do as I was a PT. If we got a new referral source that we haven't gotten for a while, or they're a brand new referral source, a very simple email to them thanking that for that referral, because it does go a long way, right? Did that happen? No, because of the bandwidth issue. And I understood it, right? Same thing, just after an eval, kind of send in a nice little letter or an email to the patient, summarizing the visit. Same thing. And the coolest thing was that those are only kind of tips of the iceberg thing, right? Like, the reason those 2 things are 2 features, right, is we have a feature where basically you can tell the AI to pretty much do what you want it to do. And we had so many people putting those 2 requests in there that were just like, okay, let's stop making them do that and let's just make it an instant feature, right? And so now it's just a 1-click feature. But to take that to the next level, you can still do this similar idea, but with different things. Hey, I want a return to run program for a 3-month post-op ACL. Well, guess what? It's written for you, right? So cool things like that. Just, again, it's that amplifier. The people that really take advantage of it, it's going to, make that you so much more efficient with everything. And again, that's going to spread to the patient.
It's power tools. You can chop down a tree with an axe. You can, but if you were to compete with someone who's using a chainsaw, it's just hard. I mean, and then you're going to be jealous the fact that, why am I still swinging this axe when I know that chainsaws exist, right? The sharpest axe was the best tool available until the chainsaw came around. And you're like, what the hell am I doing here? Once you know it exists, you can't unlearn that.
Exactly.
Last thing we do on the show, Bauer, is parting shot. What's the last thing you'd want to leave with people who are listening to us and thinking, okay, should I be using this? If so, which one? Like, what do you want to leave with people as we wrap up after giving them all this info?
I would say my biggest thing is, don't, and this is, I kind of encounter this every day, and obviously it's something that I try to work around, is like, don't be satisfied for where you're at. Strive for where you want to go, right? Like, far too common people they're stuck in their ways. It's safe, right? It's easy to do the same thing over and over and over again, right? There's no risk in that. It's very safe, everything like that, right? But unless you try new things, you never know what's going to happen, right? Like, and that's more just in general in life, right? Obviously, from this conversation, like, try new tools. It may work for you, right? But I just think that even as a profession, like, we can get into a deep rabbit hole on this. Stop doing short arc quads or whatever I want to talk about. Right. Like, try new things, right? Experiment, and you never know where it's going to lead. And more times than not, in my opinion, it's going to lead to you being a better person, a better therapist, whatever it may be. Like, be open to trying new things, and you never know where you're going to be.
If someone says, okay, great, I want you to walk me through this because I'm on the edge of a diving board and I want someone to safely, usher me into the deep end of the pool, how do you want people to reach out and find you?
You can give Jimmy, however you want them to reach out to me. Give them my email, give them whatever. Go to athelas.com, ask anything. I do not care. I won't give you, you have to email me to give you my cell phone. But if you do email me, I'll give you my cell phone, and I'll walk you through that step by step.
Bauer, appreciate you taking the deep dive into the deep end with us on AI, man.
Yep. Awesome. Appreciate it.
Let's be real. You didn't become a therapist to be average. You've got something in you that wants more mastery, more impact, more confidence in the clinic. That's exactly what Brooks Institute of Higher Learning delivers. Their residency and fellowship programs aren't just resume builders, they're transformation zones. You get one-on-one mentoring, deep dive classwork, labs, and real-time experience inside one of the most advanced rehab systems in the country. And the best part? You're not grinding this out on the side. You get a full salary and benefits while you train with the best. Whether it's ortho, neuro, peds, geriatrics, women's health, Brooks IHL helps you become the expert you know you're meant to be. Check out brooksihl.org to learn more and take that next step.